All right, Stephania, I'm going to start with
to you,
the
Stephania.
Minnesota Vikings. Yes. Justin Jefferson came back this week, had 2 catches, and then left the game because of a chest contusion. What can you tell us about everything that's going on with Justin Jefferson?
Well, this just made everybody sad, right? We were so excited about seeing him back, and then all of a sudden he plays. He had 2 snaps. What was it? Or
2 catches.
2 catches
Yep.
in 13 snaps, something like that. But he went up to catch the ball, took a big hit, and lay on the field and did not get up right away. Very scary moment. Turns out he had a chest injury. That's what it was labeled as. The Vikings really haven't offered more in the way of specifics, but it's worth noting he did make a trip to the hospital as a precautionary measure, saying they wanted to check out internal organs, which, if you think about it, your rib cage protects a lot of important structures there. Sometimes if it's a rib injury, they're concerned about a punctured lung. They did mention they were concerned about his ability to travel with the team. If you do have a lung injury, you're not allowed to fly. So it could have been something they were looking for. But in any event, he was allowed to travel with the team. And in fact, Kevin O'Connell on Monday said there's a good chance they're feeling good about Jefferson's availability for this week. So it sounds like he escaped major injury, and we have to wait and see how things look.
Okay.
Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson on the same field this weekend. Would love to see it.
It would be great.
That would be fantastic. Hey, he wasn't the only Minnesota Vikings, Stephania. Yep. Alexander Mattison also left this game with an ankle injury. What updates do you have on him? This one felt a little more vague for us.
Yeah, it's still vague.
Okay.
I hate to tell you. Right. It's still vague because all we know is that he has an ankle sprain. They haven't gotten into detail about the severity or the location of it. So right now we have no information as to the status of Alexander Mattison for this game.
But not as vague is who steps up if he's out, which is Ty Chandler. Had 15 touches this past weekend. That's a career high for Chandler. Not sure there's a ton of upside here because rushing touchdowns have been so hard to come by for this offense. But Ty Chandler, at least on the waiver wire preview, we'll talk about that a little bit more later.
Yep. All right, Stephania, we're going to talk now. Quarterbacks. We mentioned backup quarterbacks already in the show. Justin Herbert has a broken index finger. What can you tell us about what his rest of the season is going to look like?
Yeah, I want to talk about this one for a second. First of all, we've talked about how tough Justin Herbert is. We saw him play through a rib cartilage injury last year. Remember, he had a significant finger injury on his non-throwing hand already this year that we thought might cost him time, and it ended up not costing him any time at all. But when it's your throwing hand, it's his right hand, and you're a quarterback, all of a sudden the stakes are different in terms of the nature of the injury and what you have to do to treat it. Now, Adam Schefter reported he would be seeing Dr. Steve Shin, hand specialist in Los Angeles, and expected to undergo surgery on Tuesday. That is today. The reasons that you do surgery if you have a fracture is the fracture is either displaced where the bony ends aren't in alignment, it's unstable, or it can be angulated or rotated. And the critical aspect is that you have to get the bones in proper alignment because the healing has to be perfect because your index finger is so important if you're a quarterback. So this is not something that's light. We talk about hand fractures. Guys get hardware in, they come right back, they don't miss hardly any time. Again, it's different because it's your index finger and you're a quarterback. Now, when they go in for surgery, it will be, they'll have to determine whether it's something where they can use pins, they can secure the fracture, align the bones properly, do what they call a closed reduction, put pins in, or do they have to open it up and put in plates and screws? Either way, if it's pins, you got to wait about 6 weeks for the bone to heal. If you open it up, scar tissue, other things that you have to work through. It's a multi-week injury. At the end of the day, I do not expect Justin Herbert back for fantasy purposes this year, and he may not be back at all this season.
That was one of the big questions, Stephania, we have been getting in chat is if you roster Justin Herbert, am I now at a spot where I can drop him in order to go find someone else?
Yes. And if you're frustrated, and I'm sorry, but you have to just think about how important. Think if you're Justin Herbert, it's your index finger. Everything about that guides how you throw the ball.
Yeah. Yep.
This is a very critical procedure and rehab for him so that he can be the same guy who is amazing at getting the ball down the field.
Yeah. They're 5-8 also. Like, what are you playing for, right?
Right.
Like, you gotta.
But even if they were, like, this is so,
Sure,
can't be emphasized
though.
enough. And I think people think, oh, you get in surgery. That's why I said about the hand, because it's like, oh, you put hardware in, and I talk about that a lot. You get something stabilized, it helps you come back more quickly. But in this kind of an injury, just the unfortunate nature of what it is, I think it's going to be quite some time.
We'll cover this a whole lot more throughout the week, obviously. But Keenan Allen, this is the Jamar Chase theory, right? Is that like he's still playable. He's still going to be inside my top 20 for wide receivers. But Keenan Allen has dropped about 12 spots relative to where I am customarily ranking him in my week 15 ranking, just to give you a preview. They play on Thursday night, by the way. So, of course, we'll dive into it deep.
Easton.
Yes, we will.
Easton Stick.
Stick.
Yes. What a name right there. Former North
Such a
Dakota
name.
State standout, the heir apparent to Carson Wentz at North
That's
Dakota
an
State.
old-timey football name.
Easton
Like I
Stick.
feel, I
Yeah.
feel like he played back in the black and white days.
Yes.
Yes,
You
I
know
can
what I
see
mean?
that.
Like-
I
Cole
can see
Matthews
that.
still has him on
Before
that
there was
dynasty
color
roster,
TV,
which might make sense. Okay.
I mean, it's
All
such
right.
a name.
Another quarterback, Stephania, unfortunately, C.J. Stroud in the concussion protocol after getting hit by Quinnen Williams. What do we know about C.J. Stroud for this week?
Concussion protocol, and we know it's not predictable. So while we can hope that he's available to be back, I remind people quarterback such a high processing position. You've got to be right on all fronts. It's not just about toughing it out, but he'll have to go through all the phases just like anybody else would.
There is a chance that there is not a single startable Texan this weekend in fantasy. Stroud obviously uncertain. Dalton Schultz uncertain. Nico Collins
He
uncertain.
may be out.
Schultz?
Oh no, Nico
Nico Collins. Yeah,
Collins.
you're taking away. Yeah, what do you have to say there? Yeah.
yeah.
I'll table my thoughts. Any further thoughts? But what
Oh
is-
no, I was just going to say calf injury for him, which he's already dealt with
Happened
already this
early.
year, right? And it happened early, and then he was out for the rest of the game, and he's already been dealing with the calf strain, so that makes you a little concerned.
So if both of those guys, meaning CJ Stroud and Nico Collins, are out, that takes away two of our startable Texans.
Correct.
And then if you don't have Dalton Schultz, that's another startable Texan that's gone, which he's already iffy if it's Davis Mills. Then Noah Brown, who is supposed to be the next man up amongst the wide receivers, has gone quiet. Remember, he had that red hot stretch, and now in what would seemingly be better circumstances as like the number 2/number 1 wideout has gone really quiet. No Tank Dell.
Back-to-back games was zero fantasy points
catches
for Noah Brown. Yeah.
Zero for back-to-back games. So, yes. So, this Texans offense, obviously so much to be excited about for the future. But for this Sunday against the Titans, this could be like the bare bones crew. This could be the grind it out, try to run the football a ton. But they haven't really run the football all that well this year. I'm not sure that changes on Sunday against Tennessee.
Yeah. That will be something to watch. If Davis Mills is under center field, I don't have the same excitement for the rest of those Texans skill players.
Ditto. Yep.
All right, Stephania, let's talk about Josh Jacobs, who did play. This Raiders team did, in fact, play on Sunday, in spite of the fact that they lost
they
3-0. It didn't seem
I was at home.
like-
I'm telling you, they did not.
That
It
was
did?
like,
I am
How
pretty
does
sure.
that score even
I'm
happen in
being
the
told
modern
that they
era?
played,
How?
but this one was tough. Josh Jacobs got banged up in this one. What can you tell us about? I mean, he's had so much work, not just last year, but this year as well.
Right.
What's the latest on Josh?
and he's been pretty durable over this season and last. He was originally called a knee injury, but later on the injury report on Monday, they did an estimated practice report. This is a week that the Raiders play on Thursday night, so there will be a lot of practice projections, as it's typically a light week for teams who play on Thursday. He was listed as a non-participant because of a quad. Your quad crosses your knee joint. So these are not completely different references. It's, in fact, a little bit more specific for us. But that's a tough one to come back in 4 days after that injury. We'll see what happens. But I'd be prepared for the possibility that you may not have Josh Jacobs.
Field, if you don't have Josh Jacobs on Thursday Night Football with Aiden O'Connell as the quarterback, do you think that Amir Abdullah or Zamir White, with no teams on a bye, are going to come anywhere close to fantasy rosters?
I think Zamir White will come rather close, Dan. He is a good player. He was a 4th-round pick out of Georgia just a season ago, who some thought could be the starter sooner than later when Josh McDaniels took over as their head coach. Remember, Josh Jacobs was playing in the Hall of Fame game last preseason. Here are, and beyond that, Daniel, if it's, and it sounds like there's basically no way it's Justin Herbert. If it is Easton Stick, maybe this is another low-scoring game on Thursday night. Hopefully not too low-scoring because we want to see some excitement. So maybe it's a game where Zamir White could handle 15 to 18 carries. I think the tricky part is that, and maybe this is the wrong way to think about things, but casting your die with a guy that you're not even totally certain is going to have a huge role on a Thursday night football game can leave you feeling very lonely if it does not go well and there are no games until Saturday when we have 3 more this weekend. Obviously, for the rest of the season, we have a funky schedule between Saturday, extra Monday games, Thursday games. Obviously, you know it. It's the usual. 'Tis the season for funky NFL scheduling.
Yes, it is. All right, Stephania, a couple more players that we have here. Dalton Kincaid is day-to-day?
Yes, that's exactly right. Listed with a shoulder injury, which forced him out of the game. But here's something interesting. The Bills actually listed him as probable to return, but it was late in the fourth quarter. Right. But that's a pretty good indicator that they were comfortable with what the nature of the injury was, that he wasn't going to risk anything by playing. So I think that bodes well for this week, but obviously stay tuned to see if anything changes.
Gosh, I was really hoping that this wouldn't be a thing. Dalton Kincaid would continue to be the guy even once Dawson Knox came back, because we saw Dawson Knox return in this one. So hate being able to see him get banged up. A couple more questions I have for you. Geno Smith. I asked you a bunch about this on Sunday. He ended up not playing in the 4 o'clock games. Can you just tell us why? What happened there with Geno this week?
Well, last Thursday, he stumbled over a teammate in practice and was added to the injury report because of a groin injury that sounded like it was something that was going to take a few weeks to get better. Certainly not something you would want to play in a football game just a few days later. And they did the wise thing by holding him out. He really wanted to play. He went through a pregame warm-up. Remember, he was dealing with the triceps contusion just prior to that. So I think the combination and the recent onset of the groin injury kept him out. Now, the Seahawks play on Monday night this week, so there's a little extra time. And it sounds like Pete Carroll thinks if he gets good treatment and good rest, it can kind of reevaluate. They're leaving the door open for him to be available on Monday night.
Okay. Hey, that would be nice for us fantasy managers, especially if you have any of those pass catchers.
I don't know.
You don't know?
I mean, I should say I don't know. What I will say is just like, I respected Drew Lock. He kept that offense afloat for a little while against your Niners. Did a good job, right?
So he actually, he put together a good game.
He was slinging that pill early.
Poor Drew got like, here you go.
Good luck with this
Step out against the 49ers in your first start for the Seahawks.
Yeah.
Enjoy that.
No,
but I
right.
thought he did pretty well.
Yeah, certainly Geno is definitely the preference. We would like to see him on under center. But the good news is this is not like where some offenses are right now, where the starter to the backup is such a massive drop-off that these players become borderline unplayable.
Yep. All right, we got one more, Stephania. Trevor Lawrence played this week with a high ankle sprain, I believe. When you were watching him out there, like what did you see from Trevor Lawrence this week?
Didn't look great.
But he's a warrior.
Absolutely. Trevor Lawrence has never missed a game.
High school, college.
High school, college. We talk about these guys. I'm always amazed. If you watch football at this level, you cannot imagine how anyone is able to get through one season, much less several seasons, much less a college and pro career without any injuries. We saw that he had an injury to his opposite knee earlier this year, played through it, was in a brace, less mobile. He just wasn't himself. And I thought it impacted his ability to get the ball where he wanted it a few times. But incredible that he was able to do it. Certainly bodes well for him continuing. There's no reason to think that he won't be able to play. We did not hear about any setbacks, so I'd be surprised if anything changes for this week.
This was a tough one against the Cleveland Browns. Field it doesn't get any easier this week against the Baltimore Ravens.
I know, on Sunday Night Football, but he is, my only thought is, as I said, he's a warrior. Not only was he out there, he's like diving for extra yards. I'm like, Trevor!
Every time. So, of course, this is how I watch football, right? I know exactly what's hurt. I'm watching every time he gets taken down.
Yeah.
And a couple times when he got tackled, totally legitimate tackles, by the way. This is football.
Football, yeah.
But as he's going down, you see a twist. I'm looking at that motion that's going to stress that high ankle sprain. Nothing. He bounced right back up. And I was like, I don't know what he takes, but I'd like some of
I'll
that,
have
please.
whatever he's having.
I'll have what he's having.
I believe it's the ESPN cafeteria energy balls.
That's
the secret.
Those things are
they're delicious.
righteous,
By
the way.
They're addicting.
Righteous. What a good word, Stephania. All right. I think that's going to do it for injury report for week 15. Hopefully in week 16 or heading into week 16, it'll be a little bit shorter next week, Stephania, but I appreciate all this info.
Daniel,
I
have we met?
I know.